I guess the only thing that was really kind of like similar, I guess it's like, all right, her father figure is Brent Spiner, but a different Brent Spiner character. So it's a different daughter character to a different Brent Spiner character.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Matt with No Market Media.
And I'm Randall. Today, Matt and I are diving back into a TV series review. We're doing a review of Star Trek Picard Season 2. If you haven't already checked out our Season 1 review, or my Everything That's Wrong with Picard review, or our discussion about what we thought might happen in Season 2, we've talked about Picard at length. So go check those out.
It's as if we like this character or something.
Star Trek Picard stars Patrick Stewart, Allison Pill, Michelle Hurd, Santiago Cabrera, Jerry Ryan, Orla Brady, Brent Spiner, Issa Briones, and sees the recurring characters of Q and Guinan returning, reprised by John Delancey and Whoopi Goldberg. The series showrunners include Akiva Goldsman, who's best known for Fringe, and Terry Matalas, who worked on the previous Star Trek series, Star Trek Enterprise.
Now in Season 2 of Picard, Q sends Picard and his companions to an alternate reality where the Federation is a confederacy that wipes out other civilizations. Our crew decides to travel back in time to the 21st century in order to put the future back on track. Now, Season 2 of Picard debuted with mostly positive reviews, but then became more mixed as the season went on.
In a strange turn of events, I agree mostly with the masses on this one. I felt like the first couple of episodes were pretty strong. This was one of my chief complaints about Season 1. Why are all the ships the same? That's not how Starfleet is. And like right up front, they're like, look at all of these different types of ships that we have. And I'm like, yeah. And then they're like, oh, this one's got Borg tech in it. I'm like, that doesn't seem right. But anyways, like the first part of the season was really good. And then the middle starts dragging. And then the last couple of episodes, there's a little bit of like redeeming qualities. The very last episode has quite a few redeeming qualities to it. Not enough to like drag the entire like middle of the series back out of, what it was. But I felt like the story that was told here could have been done in 4 or 5 episodes. It did not need to be all 10 episodes. And case in point, Star Trek First Contact is a movie, 2 hours long. And it has, I'm not exaggerating, a very similar plot. Okay? An extremely similar plot, 2 hours, done. This didn't need to be 10 episodes of story.
Yep. I'm just going to echo a lot of what Randall said. I think this started off pretty strong. I liked our characters and stuff too. I think I like our characters at the beginning and at the end the most. Like you said, I think it wraps it up pretty good. And I'm in a pretty good, feel-good spot about our characters at the very end. Now, granted, everything in between felt stretched and kind of filler. And sadly, I lost interest pretty much there in the middle of this season. I feel bad. This is actually was more of a chore, I think, to like go through like the full thing than I was anticipating that it was gonna be. I'm just gonna go right to it, and this is something that you're gonna hear me say over and over again in this review. I'm sorry. So for me, when Star Trek, I've mentioned before, a lot of the things I like about Star Trek is when we get to do like the exploration stuff. We get to see new worlds, new civilizations.
What? You want some Trek in your Star Trek?
I kind of want that Trek in my Star Trek a bit.
Now eventually you do plan to have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, right?
One of the things I don't like as much, and Randall and I, we've gone through the original cast movies, for Star Trek. So watch a lot of those. One of the ones that I know a lot of fans like, but isn't my cup of tea when it comes to Trek, is The Voyage Home. And to me, the story on this for a lot of the season was a lot like a Voyage Home kind of thing.
A lot.
And it's just not the type of Trek that I really enjoy. So for me, that's what made it a bit of a chore when it comes to like the story.
All right, so the problem with the plot, in my opinion, for season 2, is that there's 3 plots.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Q plot, where he breaks something, Picard's got to go fix it. There's the Borg plot, where that just kind of gives the other characters something to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the Picard plot, and they're trying to wrap all of these plots up and make one coherent story out of it, and that's how you stretch it out to 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, the plot, either any of them, pick one, I don't care, by itself is enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it would have been a really interesting, compelling story to tell again over 4 or 5 episodes if you just picked the Borg plot and then you had a subplot, like an old school TNG episode where there's like, here's the main plot of the episode and here's the subplot that's also going on in the episode. Do that. This one is like, no, these plots are all interconnected with each other. And that's not how it is most of the time in those TNG episodes. That, like, no, the subplot is a subplot. It's not always connected to the main plot.
Yep.
But okay, fine. You want to do that? Cool. Choose 2, not 3, and don't so ham-fistedly make them all fit together, in my opinion.
Well, another thing, too, is if you're going to do all 3, I just want to have them take the entire season to get through all 3. Where, hey, all 3 start at the beginning and all 3 end at the end.
Yes, there was room for these all to be really good, compelling stories, just not all at the same time, like Matt said. Everything starts and ends together. So, for a Star Trek show that wants to be character-driven, because the Star Trek portion was in season 1, apparently, it's strange because it drags itself out, and the only character who sees any true progression is Picard's character. And it's not a bad story. I have heard some people complain a little bit about, like, oh, you taking this strong, willed character who always knew what he wanted, who was certain about everything. And I'm like, whoa, hold the phone for just a second. Did you not watch the episode with his brother from TNG? He does have demons. Picard's not an infallible character. He has these aspects of him that he hides from everybody else to be the captain. Again, there's an episode with Beverly Crusher where they're like psychically linked due to some technology as their prisoners. And it's like, you're not sure of what you mean. And he says, well, as a captain, I have to put on a facade sometimes of acting sure. So, like, his character progression, albeit extremely slow, makes sense. I just don't think that it necessarily serves the plot of the Borg stuff, because we've already done that in First Contact. Already been there, done that, And it doesn't serve the plot of, like, the time traveling, fix the time traveling stuff. He doesn't need to fix himself or deal with his past to deal with this problem. The character development is just there. And everyone else is just there. The only exception is John Delancey as Q.
Yeah. I guess what I didn't really like, or what I notice about characters in this, is I feel like our character development and everything is really relationship driven in this season, at least for me. A lot of it is kind of like Picard, not only just like I wouldn't say like his relationship with himself, but also, kind of like being able to have like a relationship. Really, a lot of this, especially in the middle, I would say it's, with Rafi, it's Rafi and Seven. We're kind of looking at that. We kind of started off with, Rios and, I'm blanking on the...
Girardi?
Girardi.
Yeah.
So we start off with Rios and Girardi, like, their relationship that they're, like, not in, like, a romantic relationship anymore. Yeah. But then we go to, like, have them develop new relationships. Granted, I'm not all talking about, like
romantic
He's
relationships. Talking about character relationships.
Relationships. So we have Rios with this new doctor that he meets or whatever in the 21st century and stuff, and her kid. And then we have, Girardi with the Borg, the Borg Queen kind of thing, and how like this kind of like relationship stuff too. Well, I guess how it didn't really work for me is I feel like these relationships were really like segmented through. Like, hey, we're looking a little bit at, in this instance, Seven and Rios.
The thing is, they all had interesting things that could have happened. Like the idea Girardi is a lonely person and the Borg Queen can't handle being alone.
Yep.
that makes sense to pair them together. That's fine, you know. They already hinted at Seven and Rafi at the end of season 1,
Yep.
like being a thing. Like, and there's an audio drama with them too, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So like that kind of makes sense, but it just doesn't all make sense with the plot.
I just didn't find it all interesting, I think is my main part
Yeah,
on it.
like they have the glimmer of interest,
mm-hmm.
and then nothing. There is a couple of characters like that are, for intents and purposes, I guess, villains.
Mm-hmm.
Where Brent Spiner is, you know, not playing. He's playing an ancestor of Soon,
Mm-hmm.
whose Data's creator is a Soon. You know, so like that's kind of interesting. But then like they completely threw away Issa's character from season 1, the android that she plays, and like, no, she's gonna do this other new character. I'm like, Brent Spiner playing a Soon character makes perfect sense. He's done it previously. He did it on Enterprise. He played Dr. Soon in TNG. All of that. But man, they just threw all of the development of Issa's character from the first season out the window and said, no, you're just gonna play this new character.
Yep.
Like, just to have you in the cast. That was disappointing.
I guess the only thing that was really kind of like similar, I guess it's like, all right, you know, her father figure is Brent Spiner, but a different Brent Spiner character. So it's a different daughter character to a different Brent Spiner character.
Yeah. Yeah. And then of course you have the legacy characters.
Mm-hmm.
Not just Picard. You have Guinan and Q.
Yes.
And they have a history that is never really truly explained, just that the Allurians know about Q.
Mm-hmm.
Now it is fleshed out here better. Which is fine. Like I'm okay with, like, they didn't unwrap the secrets of their past, but like, oh yeah, we've had some serious dealings with the Q, you know. So that was fine. And I like John Delancey as Q, but I will get to it later, in all honesty. More about Guinan and problems. Okay? But like those legacy characters didn't feel quite as genuine to me. And then there's one legacy character who should be in the series who's not. I mean, there's many that could be in the series, but there's one that absolutely should be. You have all these flashbacks of Picard and his not his wife. He doesn't have a wife, sorry. And his mom and his dad.
Yep.
All of this. And I'm like, where's Robert? Where is Picard's brother? His older brother.
Yep.
In any of his flashbacks and his time as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Like, where is he? Nowhere to be seen.
Yep.
Why?
That is a bit disappointing too. And I'll go back on kind of like Q. I like Q at the beginning. I like Q at the end. I'm not as sold on Q in the middle stuff.
He didn't have anything to do in the middle.
I know.
Really?
He didn't. But when he is popping in and making, like, you know, little changes or trying to direct things in a certain way or whatever, I guess I wasn't as big on, you know, that portrayal or whatever as Q as it was when, you know, we start Q and where we end off with Q.
Yeah. Now, to be fair, they did exactly what I predicted they would do with Q. They're going to start him out looking like he does.
Yep.
And then they'll be like, oh, you're old. I'll be old. I'm like, well, I didn't take obviously didn't take a genius to figure out.
All right, for me, genre aspects, this is another one of those sci-fi shows for me. That's how I really feel. I feel like this is kind of like a pattern with a lot of different shows or whatever, where it just feels like, you know, sci-fi, and it's, you know, stuff that we've seen kind of similar in like other sci-fis. We're just using name properties to kind of tell like these sci-fi stories kind of thing. So to me, that's kind of really what I saw, and I think a lot of it too was with our dealing with the Borg and stuff in this show. That's where I really get kind of like the sci-fi feel of this. The other stuff, like the traveling through time and stuff, I already mentioned, is not my favorite.
It's time travel.
It's time travel. I just wish it wasn't set in like today, you know, kind of thing when we do time travel.
Well, yeah, like, I mean, it's a compelling, like, weird thing. In First Contact, the time travel is a necessity for like everything else, but it's not set in like contemporary Earth.
Yep.
It's after World War III and everything's devastated.
Yep.
It's clearly still science fiction.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
To me, so, you know, obviously the genre is, it's kind of like Star Trek. It's Star Wars, it's Star Trek. You know, like,
yep.
it's just that, I already said, More Trek in the Star Trek, please. Some stars, maybe, in the Star Trek would be preferable. It's a time travel storyline, which is part of the problem. Because look at some of the best Star Trek is time travel, okay? It is integral to a lot of the stories that are told. But they're always done in like two-parters. You can get a really good Star Trek timeline, wonky show done in 2 hours. You don't need it to be 10 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
This came out feeling like an extended version of an episode of Sliders. I'm old. He's in Star Trek now, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he plays a role in that Shall Not Be Named series that I don't watch and don't like. But, like Sliders, they're always just trying to get home. They jump to the next universe kind of thing.
Yep.
This is what that felt like. And they do that in Sliders every single 45-minute episode.
Yep.
Not 10 episodes. So, yeah, genre, missing out on Star Trek, and missed the boat on time travel because it takes too long.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Didn't see that coming. So what's annoying to me as a pretty big Star Trek fan is they get some really small things right. And you're like, wow, that was something that only a Star Trek fan's gonna really know about. Like a pretty big Star Trek fan's gonna know about. And then they get really big things wrong. And I'm like, you don't have to be a Star Trek fan to know about this as an important thing in Star Trek. I already mentioned one of the things that's clearly an omission is Robert. I'm like, where is Picard's father? Not father, brother. Where is Picard's brother? Nowhere to be seen. But I have other examples. I mean, one of the big plot points, I said I was going to talk about this later, was Guinan.
Mm-hmm.
Guinan shows up, but she's here. She's in canon. She's on Earth around, an Illurian's got a very long lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
But she's on Earth in the 1800s. It's canon in Star Trek episodes in the season finale of 5 and the season premiere of 6. They do a time travel episode with Picard. Guinan's there. Guinan talks to Picard. She knows. But this is Guinan in the past. She hasn't met Picard yet.
Mm-hmm.
But this Guinan in Star Trek Picard season 2 is the same Guinan.
Yep.
In 2024. And she's like, I have no idea who you are, old man. Get the F out of my bar. In contrast to that, I know. I will let Matt talk, okay? I will. But in contrast to that, there's like small things that they get right, which is just weird. So the Orla, she plays a basically kind of like a someone who just watches over people.
Yep.
They she plays a supervisor. And that's off of a really old original series concept. And I'm like, that's interesting. And then they bring back, spoiler alert, Will Wheaton to play Wesley Crusher as a traveler. And I'm like, that's really cool, picking up on that thread that never got resolved at all of his character and what happens to him. I'm like, oh good, he's still out there doing traveler things. I'm like, that's some really cool stuff. But they get other big, important canon stuff just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I could go on, but I won't. I'll let Matt have his turn.
Well, Matt is going to be a little bit shorter on just this element. It's because I've already touched on it a lot of it before. So I'm not as big in having Star Trek, in contemporary times, just, Voyage Home kind of thing. So we saw that in the trailers that's what we were going to do. Mm-hmm. I expected that was going to be a 3-episode arc and not take the majority of the season to go through. And I think a lot of it is, it's not that is bad. It's just not what I prefer. That's not the type of Trek that I necessarily like to watch. So I think that's why I lost a bit of interest of it. It was something that, as we've been talking about, thought could be resolved in a short amount of period. Took so much longer to actually go through and actually resolve the things that were happening. It sounds like we would get a problem and then we'd kind of solve it, but then after we solve it, we're still in the same spot that we were.
Yeah, see, the problem with contemporary Star Trek, happening, not contemporary Star Trek, but Star Trek that takes place at contemporary times, is we're now past some really important parts in Star Trek history, and this is just going to go back to my complaint about, the small things they get wrong. or the big things they get wrong. Voyage Home takes place in 1986. And at that point, history more or less progresses the way that you expect it to.
Mm-hmm.
But in Star Trek canon, the Eugenics War, which is Khan, that's in like 1992 or 94 or something like that. It's in the 90s, like the early to mid 90s. That's when that war takes place and starts devastating over in like the Asian continent, you know, because by the way, Khan's an Indian character, not English. Benedict. You know, it's not Benedict's fault. JJ. But this contemporary setting of like 2024, I'm like, all right, so this is after the Eugenics War. And Voyager had a similar thing where they're in like they have an episode that takes place in like 1995, but like they care about canon a little bit more back then than they do now. But I'll go on, you know, with like the thing like at the very end of Brent Spiner's character, he pulls out this file and it says Project Khan, and I'm like, are you looking at like the past? Because it can't be the future. Khan's out in space. He's gone. He's been gone for like 30 years.
Honestly, that is what it seems like they're doing. Not that it's past, that, you know, that soon is leading to the, you know, that later.
Like, see, because that doesn't make sense because very soon in Star Trek canon, World War III is going to happen. Because it's in 2060s when First Contact happens. It's just weird. Why pull out this obscure connection to TOS with the supervisors and Wesley with the Traveler and then get these big things wrong?
Yep. And I think a big thing, too, a lot of what doesn't work for me on having Star Trek in contemporary times. So Star Trek is very good at trying to use the show to address real-world issues at the time that it's airing and stuff, too.
Which they did a little.
Which it did. But I like that the issues are being taken. I just don't like the approach as much. I kind of like the idea of, hey, we have like a future setting and we're using that as an example to try to, hamper on, current issues.
There's a foil over it where it's like the Klingons are the USSR.
Yep.
The Federation's the United States.
Yep.
And the falling of the Berlin Wall is when Praxis blows up.
Yep.
It's like that.
Where this, it's kind of like, hey, let's just take a modern issue head on and just explain it by, well, this person's in the future and they've experienced things. So whatever the future person says is the way that, it needs to go or whatever. It's not that I don't disagree with the message that they're trying to say. I just don't like how it's being told. I'm just kind of like, okay, yep, this is just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, people are being disappeared. Yeah, okay. You could have done it within the confines of a story that didn't beat you over the head with it, I guess. But, yeah, it's fine.
All in all, I would say this was a bit of a disappointment. I guess that's how I'd put it. I don't think it's necessarily bad. It's just not the type of Trek that I'm, like, really interested in seeing and stuff, too. But what I do like is, I do like where we end with this. We are setting up other stuff in Star Trek, and heck, for season 3, because we are going to have a season 3.
It's already filmed.
It's already filmed. And they've announced, too, that we're getting some of the original cast back, or all of the original cast from TNG. So I'm interested to see where they go from this. Even though I didn't like this season, especially in comparison to 1, even though I did have some problems with season 1, too, I'm actually still invested in Picard as a show to look into season 3.
Yeah, I thought season 2 had a strong start, very slow middle, and a pretty decent end. And I'm not gonna lie, like when this season came to a close, and they started like wrapping up all of their storylines, I was like, oh, that was done really well. How they handled Q was done extremely well for his character and Picard's character, and knowing that going forward they are bringing in the TNG crew for season 3. It sets us up for a good story, basically. I just hope that they don't squander that good story, and I want it to be pretty Star Trek based.
Yep.
I want it to be in the future with some stakes that are worthy of this crew and everything. So even though season 2 is disappointing, I think it's kind of just like, you know what? Let's finally give them what they're really asking for. The crew of TNG back together again. this is how we get to that with like Picard. I don't want you to be alone.
Yep.
You know?
But Randall and I, we want to know, what do you guys think about season 2 of Picard? Are you excited for season 3 of Picard? You know, Randall and I are going to be talking about that when that gets closer to time too.
As soon as the first trailer comes out, what do we think about season 3 Picard?
Let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, be sure to check out some of our other reviews. We look at other TV shows. We also do new movie reviews, flashback movie reviews, and we have some deeper dive discussions.
But of course, we also have a Facebook page. You can go check us out over there. We post on Facebook, you know, what we're working on, what's coming up soon on our YouTube channel. We also share some things from all of our other fandoms, not just Star Trek and Star Wars, of course. If you don't have a Facebook, don't worry about it. You can go to our YouTube channel anytime you want. Go check out a video. We post updates regularly. But for now, I'm Randall here with No Market Media. I'll see everyone next time.
And I'm Matt. Have a good day, everyone. Next time on No Market Media. Please consider checking out some of our other videos.